All right, welcome to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. We are now one day away from the beginning of free agency, but they're allowing, like the NBA, they're allowing this tampering period for the first 2 days. So you've got a slew of Saints news that has come out in the past couple of days. They did all kinds of things to get under the cap, and something else happened this weekend. Sean, do you know if anything else happened this weekend that was kind of important?
Well, this is actually a historic show for us because this is going to be the very first Under the Dome broadcast that we did not have number 9 as the starting quarterback.
Exactly. So, yeah,
It's funny that you just put that up. I did a radio interview the other day, and that was one of the things that I was asked was, what would you say would be your favorite moment involving Drew Brees? And I couldn't think of anything. There's so many. Yeah.
Well, and I'd say that. I'd say, yeah, I wouldn't be able to narrow it down to one because there's a half a dozen or more favorite moments I've got with Drew that just, we'll get into it in a second. But, yeah, it's just so much of what he has meant to just this city alone. And I wrote that, Sunday evening, just the impact that this man has had on this franchise, changing the narrative about the New Orleans Saints, completely changing the narrative about the city, about everything. I mean,
before Brees and Peyton got here, which in a lot of ways is kind of sort of simultaneous, but before they got here, the Saints were generally regarded as the lovable losers that were never going to be in that championship moment, be in that Super Bowl, be what they eventually became. And I don't think that eventually is even the right word for it, because in their first year it was 10-6 and a trip to Chicago for the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
The impact was sudden and immediate and historic. That's the only word that comes to mind.
Absolutely. And, the thing about two things, and I didn't write about this, but the Saints prior to Drew Brees' arrival is where quarterbacks came to watch their careers die. And I mean, you think about Ken Stabler, you think about Richard Todd, the Billy Joes, just all of them. I mean, Jim Everett to an extent, even Aaron Brooks. Aaron Brooks had good years, but you never had a guy until, I guess, Jake Delhomme, but you never really had a guy play quarterback for the Saints, leave this team, and go on to be a more successful quarterback somewhere else.
Yeah.
You could say Mark Bulger to an extent, but Mark Bulger never really played for the Saints. He was a draft pick, but I mean, and this was the farm club for the 70s and some of the 80s. It became the farm club for smarter GMs. They take our draft picks and give us crap. They take our, they give us garbage players. It's just, until Drew Brees got here, you never had someone you felt like, this is the guy I can trust that will win it all for us. So,
yeah, and I think the statement that Sean Payton put out the other day was really, really good when he talked about how basically he insinuated that his success as a coach was directly related to this organization bringing Drew in.
Wade Wilson's another one. I mean, Jeff Blake even.
Yeah.
You think about, Wade Wilson. Okay, yeah, he was a starter here, and then he went to Dallas and became a backup and never really was a starter again. So yeah, I mean, Bobby Hebert, I guess you could say. I mean, he was kind of a backup / starter with Atlanta. He took over
but he
Chris
was more.
Miller.
To me, Hebert was different because he was successful in New Orleans to an extent, but he would never had that success anywhere else he went.
Right. And he finished his career with Atlanta, but he was a backup, only a starter that first year, 93. And it was only because they benched Chris Miller. Chris Miller was a walking concussion. He got benched for bad play against the Saints in that first game, week 2 of 1993 season. Hebert comes on. Ronaldo Turnbull forces a fumble to allow Morton Anderson game-winning field goal. But Hebert, I think, ended up starting most of the rest of that season for Atlanta. But then Atlanta got Jeff George. So Hebert went to the bench. They'd only play Jeff George. I mean, only play Hebert if Jeff George was struggling or he was fighting with his coach. But, Hebert's career was pretty much over. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Drew Brees was the first quarterback that came to the Saints and elevated the team.
Yes.
And the funny thing about it is, if you go back to the 2006 season, Reggie Bush was the focus. Reggie Bush was a star. Where were you on, if you can think back this far, where were you on March 14th, 2006? I know where I was, but where were you when you heard the news?
I don't remember where I was. I remember my thoughts because I had memory of watching Drew play it when he was at Purdue, and I was relatively concerned because I had seen the injury that he sustained in San Diego, and my initial reaction was, well, we just signed somebody else's cast off again. But I at the time, I didn't have any kind of working knowledge about Drew, about the competitor that he was, about the fire inside of him and the will to win and the will to succeed. That was something that I picked up on as his career here progressed.
Okay, the company I was working for. We would have, in 2006, I was still a buyer for it. I wasn't branch manager yet. And in 2006, we used to have managers meetings with the supply chain people would come. There was 3 of us, and then all the managers, and then the upper management, the CFO, the controller, the CEO, and the COO. They had chief operating officer, chief executive officer, and chief financial officer. So we'd all meet at a manager's meeting. And the meeting itself was really just a one-day deal. It was really an excuse to go out on the company dime and have a good time for the weekend. We'd fly out somewhere. I think that was the first year we went to Vegas for that meeting. Because we were across the country. So one year it was on the East Coast, I think in Florida. One year it was out in San Diego. And one year it was out it could have been San Diego where we were. I just don't really remember anymore because it was every year. Anyway, I was at my hotel getting dressed. We were going to go out to dinner that night. So I was putting on clothes that we would go out to eat, and then of course we'd all hit the bar afterwards, and that was the best part. The company would put the card up, and we have an open tab, drink as much as you want. Hell yeah.
Yes indeed.
We're all oil field trash, man. We're gonna drink a lot. So yeah, in fact, that was one of my favorite comments from a guy, Steve Leverage. We were in Nashville one year for the meeting, and we're walking in Nashville, and it's like 2:00 in the afternoon, and he's like, "All these bars are empty. Where are all the salesmen in this town?" So it was great. But anyway, so I got the text message and I read it, and I said, So we picked up the quarterback with the bad passing shoulder. Such a typical Saints move. I said, and I told my wife at the time, I'm like, I said, yeah. I said, hey, it's a flyer. I mean, we'll see if his shoulder's up to it or not. But, I don't have any great expectations. I was still kind of up for the Reggie Bush thing because we went out to eat the night of that the Texans announced the night before the draft. The Texans announced they were going to take Mario Williams. So that created a lot more buzz because, iPhones hadn't been invented yet. So most people had Blackberries. I had a Blackberry at the time, but most people either have flip phones or Blackberries, and you could see everybody looking at their phones, scrolling. Oh, everybody's whispering and stuff like that because they got the news that the Texans were doing that. So that was more exciting than when Drew Brees was announced to have been signed. And draft day, when they drafted Reggie Bush, I mean, the jersey sales for 25 were flying off all the pre-orders for that. Nobody was ordering 9s.
Yeah.
So there was no real hyper expectations about Brees, and that's what was so strange.
Well, everybody approached it with kid gloves because they weren't sure what we were getting. Right. The only knowledge that most had going into it was that the Dolphins doctors had failed him on his physical. Yeah. And this is the guy that we signed. So like you said, typical Saints move.
Yeah. I mean, you go to look at that press conference. Drew cannot hold up his own jersey with his right arm. He has to let it go because he has no strength in it. He wasn't even allowed to throw a football until the middle of summer. Mm-hmm. So, and here we're going to go to training camp in a month, and he's just starting to throw a football. So, yeah, I had really no expectations about this. And it changed for me. Okay, I'll go 2 steps. Number one, do you remember the Dallas preseason game? It was week 3. They played in Jackson, I think, to play the Dallas Cowboys in that preseason game. It was week 3 of the preseason. Do you remember that game?
Vaguely.
It was horrible.
It was horrible. I mean, at that point in time, I didn't really follow preseason all that much. Mm-hmm. See, this is all before I was working covering the team for PFS.
Okay. Well, in 2006, they played the Dallas Cowboys in a preseason game, and the Saints got their ass kicked. I mean, it was brutal, the beatdown we got. I mean, we couldn't do anything. And I'm looking at this like, holy crap, we're going to go 5-11 at best. Looking at the schedule, I'm like, this is going to suck. We are going to be terrible. So we got a quarterback who can't throw. Our offensive line is trash. Something's on fire. Everything is bad. And I'm just thinking this team is horrible. And I watch. We make those trades. We get Scott Shanley in that game. We did a couple of things. In fact, if you guys at home, if y'all watch the America's Game 2009 Saints, when you see Sean Payton call out one of the defensive backs who ended up getting cut, and he says, "Hey," he says, "I'm watching out there. You're just conceding every throw. I'm watching. Tell me I'm wrong." I'm talking about the 2009 America's Game. That clip is from that Dallas preseason game because that was played in Jackson. So, I had no expectations. I go and watch the Cleveland game, and I'm like, I'm really watching for Reggie Bush. I'm excited. I want to see Reggie Bush. I want to see if he's going to be the Gale Sayers everybody says he's going to be. because I figure, Reggie Bush, little Deuce McAllister, we should be able to cover for Drew Brees until he can actually start throwing the ball with some kind of velocity. That was a good win. Week 2, Green Bay, and this is what the point I was getting to this, why I went through this whole story. Week 2 of Green Bay, I'm watching that game in the first half, and we suck. We are getting Brett Favre's kicking our ass. And last year we played in Lambeau Field. That's the game Deuce McAllister got hurt. In 2005, he blew out his knee. So I'm like, man, I can't deal with this. And I got season tickets that year too. All part of the support New Orleans and everything else. I spent my government check on season tickets for Katrina. I got a government check for Katrina. Fuck it, buy season tickets. No, anyway, no. My wife gave it to me for Father's Day. She bought season tickets, 2 season tickets for us for Father's Day. So anyway, I turn off that game. I said, I'm not watching this because I'm not going to get pissed off. I didn't get pissed off all of 2005. Watching that train wreck of a season, I'm not going to get mad. This is what I thought, a 5-11 team, at best. So I walk out the room, and my wife comes in just before halftime. She says, they're coming back. And I'm like, are they? Are they making a game out of this? So I put it back on. That was the last Saints game for the next 15 years that I would turn off. Because I'm like, it's over. And that's the point I was really trying to make. Old Saints teams, if they were down by 14 points or 21 points, yeah, they might score a garbage touchdown, but it was over. You knew you weren't going to come back from that. When a team started to come back, that's what made the 2000 playoff game, Hakeem drops the ball, so damn exciting and unusual because that doesn't happen to the Saints. What happens is Hakeem, fields the punt, runs a pretty good return, and the Rams just have to run like 4 plays to get in field goal range and win the game. That's what usually happens.
Either that or he fumbles the ball and recovers it.
Yeah, you watch the Saints find a way to lose. It all changed from that point on. And that's the thing about Drew Brees that I will never forget, and I know I'll never see again, that confident feeling that no matter what the situation is, no matter how many points we were down, Drew was going to take this team back.
That's right.
Now, unfortunately, 21 times he took the lead in the last 2 minutes of the game or 3 minutes of a game, and the Saints defense would give up the points and he'd lose. And no other quarterback has ever gone through that.
Yeah.
But that was the feeling I got. I mean, think about I've told this story before, but you think about the 2011 49ers playoff game. I've told this story about what I said when Jimmy Graham scored that touchdown. I'm screaming at the TV. How does it fucking feel? How does it feel, 49ers? I watched Joe Montana do this shit to us so many times. How does it fucking feel? And of course, I end up having to eat my words because of Roman Harper. But that was how confident I was that we were going to be able to do this. I mean, that Drew Brees was going to win this game. My wife asked me one time, why do you have the Minneapolis Miracle game on DVR still? Why do you watch that? I said, you know what I watch? I watch from the beginning of the third quarter to the last 10 seconds of the game. I watch that part of the game because that comeback in that sequence is vintage Drew Brees, where I'm just going, look at this. Look at the crowd. Look at their faces. I know those faces because that was my face when we're playing Joe Montana, when we're playing, the Rams, when we're playing anybody. It was like, the Raiders back in 1979. I'm just going, how are we going to lose this game? And that there's too many good Drew Brees moments to really focus on these bad ones. But yeah, I know how it feels. Vernon Davis, man, I still to this day I still hit him.
Effing Davis.
Yep. Jerry mentions the playoff game against Philly. That wasn't so much a Drew Brees showpiece game as much as it was a Deuce McAllister showpiece game. I mean, when Deuce just carries that group into the end zone. But my favorite moment from that game, and I'll get back to Drew in a second, but my favorite moment from that game is it's early in the game. I think it's the second or third drive the Saints had, and Deuce McAllister runs between the tackle and the guard in the center, and the crowd goes Deuce. Well, they go from Deuce to in the mid chant because Deuce breaks open for like a 15-yard run. He runs over the safety, who I think was Kurt Coleman. It might have been Kurt Coleman back then, but I don't remember who it was. But he runs over the safety in the process, and it just, that whole game was fun. That was a fun game to watch.
Well, the thing that strikes me the most about looking back on his time in New Orleans was after that first season, like you said, that set the precedent of the will to win that he possessed and that he played with. After that first season, it like the week leading up to Sunday's game, it didn't matter who you were playing. You could be playing the defending Super Bowl champion, and you always felt like, hey, we can win this.
Absolutely. There was no team at any point in any, like when I was watching the Jim Moore teams, when the Saints would play the 49ers, I would always say, we're not going to win this. They're going to frustrate the hell out of me. We're going to find a way to lose this game. Every time we play the 49ers, I said, Jerry Rice is going to pull some bullshit, or Joe Montana is going to pull this win out of his ass. Something's going to happen, and we're going to lose this game. So, automatically I check that off as a loss. And if we played a tough team like, oh, man, we got to play Dallas in Dallas. Oh, I hate playing in Dallas. We're going to lose this game. But with Drew Brees, I'm like, and we've said on this show, 4 years now? Man, we got an 8-game winning streak. We can go through that. The Saints can win this game, this game, this game, this game, get all the way down, and we circle like the most important game, but we wouldn't say that's going to be a loss. That's going to be the game that defines the season for us.
Yeah.
And what happened after the Chiefs game this year? We're like, man, if we had this guy healthy, or Drew was in better shape, we would have beat the Chiefs. We were that close to beating the Chiefs. And sure enough, when you watching the Super Bowl, you're thinking to yourself, the Saints could have gotten past Tampa. We probably would beat that team. We could have done what Tampa did, that kind of thing. So you're right. That's the difference. John Butler posts this game as his favorite Drew Brees moment. 2009 versus the Patriots. That was week 11 in a dome, Monday Night Football. Yeah, and the Devery Henderson touchdown. Drew threw 5 touchdown passes, I think, that night.
And Tom Brady took himself out of the game.
Yep. I mean, that was just an unbelievable moment. That was one of my favorite games. The other game I would point to in the 2009 season is against Miami.
Yes. Yeah.
Because just like in Green Bay in 2006, that Miami game where Miami's just running over us. It's 24-7 at halftime. And we got that 7 because Drew Brees did the first time he did it, the leap over the top with the ball to get the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all changed in the second half. And once again, you're like, and we scored like 40-something points in that game.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going, okay, this is a team. This is what Drew Brees does. This is what happens. You have an elite quarterback. This is what elite quarterbacks do for you. You find ways to win even when you're not playing your best. And that's how I always felt with Drew Brees. Even when we saddled with those garbage defenses in 2014, 2015, and even 2016, it was just like, we're going to find a way to win this game. We were talking about, I mean, you think about Bountygate year. We don't talk about 2012 very much. You watch Bountygate, the Bountygate games that year. We were playoff eligible up until like the last couple of games of the season, and with garbage cornerbacks like Johnny Patrick and just a terrible defense. But Drew Brees and Jimmy Graham and Darren Sproles, and you just felt like we could win. We could still win this game. We could still squeak our way in the playoffs and prove everybody wrong. I mean, because we just had that much talent. So, hey, look, my buddy Phil's in the chat now. Good deal. How you doing, Phil? Yeah, the Miami game is that's why I always point to that game too. You know, the other game from the 2006 season that really sticks out to me, and it's not a game that we won either, but it was the first game that I saw that season where I started to see the potential of Drew Brees. It was the Pittsburgh game. Do you remember the Steelers game in 2006? I rewatched it the other day, so.
Kind of, sort of.
Okay, it ended up being a shootout, and the Steelers won the game. They were in the lead almost the entire game. But that was the first game where Drew Brees started to show what he could do healthy. Like, you watch those earlier games, they were very run-oriented. The Philadelphia game in the Dome, the Atlanta game when they reopened the Dome, Brees didn't really cut it loose. That game, he started to cut it loose. And that was the Fumblerooski play. That's the one where they tried to do a direct snap, I think, to Deuce McAllister, and the ball went between Deuce and Drew, and Deuce scooped it up and ran in the end zone because everybody froze. It was like the ball's on the ground. Deuce picks it up and just runs it in, so. But that was a game where you started to see what Drew could do. So that sets you up for, what was it, week 12, week 13, because it was Saints were 8-4. Week 13 against Dallas, the first time they won in Dallas, when on Sunday Night Football, where they just kicked the crap out of the Cowboys and embarrassed Bill Parcells. So yeah, it was a special. That season, as it went on, you started to believe more and more, you know what? This team can do something. We finally got a coach. We finally got a quarterback. We have a team now. We can actually start to do something. And it's the first time that I felt like that year, I felt like we actually have a legitimate shot of winning the Super Bowl. We got to the NFC Championship game, and I was pissed off that we didn't go to the Super Bowl, but I felt like this team was going to challenge for a Super Bowl now. Yeah.
Especially when the defense rose to the occasion like they did in 2009.
Yeah. And the 2009 season was just so damn magical. Everything about that season.
It's like you always say on here, to win a Super Bowl, you got to be good, you got to be lucky, and you got to catch some breaks along the way. And that team did.
Yep. It was just so enjoyable every week to watch the winning streak grow, how they were going to win that game. I thought they were going to go 19-0. I have on one of my old computers, I still have the picture of the Saints joint. Remember the Perfectville commercial that they came out with in 2007 when the Patriots went 17-0 and in the 16-0 in the regular season, and it was the old 72 Dolphins in this town. It's in Perfectville, and you see a moving truck back up next door to them, and they're looking like We're going to have new neighbors. And well, of course, the Patriots didn't go perfect. They went 18-1. But I had a 19-0 Perfectville welcome to the neighborhood picture I had made. I said, I'm saving this sucker for the Super Bowl. I'm putting this thing up, and of course we lost after 13 games. But I looked at it, I'm like, Dallas, Tampa, and Carolina. We can win all three of those games. We're going to go undefeated the whole season. And we're just going to steamroll through the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. That's how I felt. And, when we lost that Dallas game, and then Tampa, I was like, what the hell? but I never thought we were going to lose the Cardinals playoff game. And I really didn't feel like we were going to lose the Vikings game.
What scared me about the Cardinals game is the week before us, they played Green Bay, and it was an epic shootout right up to the end. And
I had several people tell me that I jinxed it. Yeah, you're right. You're right, because the Cardinals won that game because the strip sack by of Aaron Rodgers. He kicks a ball right to the guy. When they knock it loose. Yeah, I felt like, hey, we're playing Kurt Warner. Yeah, they're good, but we're better.
Yeah. And then the first play from scrimmage is an 80-yard touchdown run.
Yep. But it was funny because we were all wound up. We were loud cheering. I had my son with me. We're all wound up, loud, cheering at the game and stuff, and that play happens. And the guy turns around and says, it's okay. That just means Drew Brees gets the ball now. And that's their ass. And we're like, you're right. Hey, go ahead. You want to play a shootout? We'll do a shootout with you. You're not gonna like it, but we could do a shootout with you.
I watched an interview the other night with Kurt Warner and Drew, and Kurt said that he made a point to mention his career ended in that Superdome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was funny because
that was the hit.
They showed that iconic photo of Drew holding Balin, looking at the confetti coming down. Mm-hmm. And he told Kurt Warner, he said, Kurt asked him something about the other three kids, and he said, well, that sets the bar kind of high because all three of the others have asked me, when do we get to do that, Dad?
I bet. Think about Philip Rivers' kids. He's got 9 of them. So, yeah, can you imagine? Yeah. There's a meme out right now. This is Philip Rivers' wife. Philip Rivers is now retired. Light a candle and say a small prayer for Philip Rivers' wife's vagina. I was like, oh my God. But yeah. That was classic. That was a classic meme. But and then in 2011, the 2010 season, that was the first time I think Drew really got hurt for us, and they wouldn't disclose what was wrong with him. But it was an abdominal injury. And he that was the year he threw 22 interceptions, the highest total of his career. And the whole time I'm watching that season, I'm just going, man, there's something wrong with him. And we went through like a slew of running backs too. Mm-hmm. At one point we had that Redskins running back. He wore number 46 for the Redskins. I don't remember his name anymore. But, Pierre Thomas had gotten hurt. Deuce McAllister was already gone. Reggie Bush was injured a lot. I don't think Chris Ivory was on the team yet. Yes, he was. Chris Ivory was injured. He got injured early in the season and was supposed to come back because he played against Seattle. And in 2010, we kicked Seattle's butt on the field during regular season in the Dome. And that's when Pete Carroll made the trade for Marshawn Lynch. And we were so hurt running backs, we had tried to trade Buffalo of I don't remember if it was a first round pick, it might have been a second and a fourth for Marshawn Lynch. And I think Seattle got him a lot cheaper, and we were all in Jay Glazer posted the story, said the Saints were furious. Saints like, we would have given you more. Why didn't you trade with us? Why didn't you give us Marshawn Lynch? So imagine the 2010 Saints would have got Marshawn Lynch instead of Seattle. No beast mode play. I mean, then in 2011, he's on the team. So I'm sure they don't make the trade for Mark Ingram. But 2011, you've got beast mode on your team going against that 49ers defense. So, with Sproles and Graham and, you've got Carl Nix and Jari Evans in their prime and all that. I mean, it was, I guess it just, it wasn't meant to be, but that would have been those two, that 2011 team, that was my two-peat team. That was the one that was I was still, even though in 2018, we were in the NFC Championship and we lost in divisional round 2011. 2011 will always be my team. I'm like, that's the team that would have won 2 Super Bowls right there.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one.
The thing that I guess holds the biggest place in my heart as far as Brees goes.
Yes, he did.
The year that we went to Dallas and we beat them in overtime, it was right before Christmas.
Wait, before Christmas?
Yeah. It was like the 23rd of December, maybe.
What year was this? 2014?
I cannot remember.
Was it?
It was. I tell you what it was. It was Ingram's rookie year.
2011. Might have been 2012. You might be 2012. You're thinking of.
He was wearing number 28.
Yeah, it's probably 2012. The 2012 is that the one with the Jimmy Graham recovers the fumble?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 2012. That's the 2012 season.
A month before that game is when I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And my nephew, who's a diehard Cowboys fan, and my niece's husband, I guess that makes him my nephew. But they
poor bastard.
Yeah. They gifted me for Christmas and birthday with tickets to go see the Saints and Cowboys play, and we all four went over there. Well, in the days leading up to the game, we tried to make contact with the Drew Brees Foundation to see if there was any way possible that I could get to meet him.
Trying to pull Bobby Brady?
Yeah.
I have a terminal illness. I need to meet Joe Namath. Yeah, I got you.
Well,
good deal.
We finally, just a couple of days before we go to the game, finally got someone on the phone, and they said, well, I'm sorry, but when we are the visiting team, we don't really do meet and greets like that in someone else's stadium. And they got my address and told me thanks for the interest and all that. Well, I thought that was the end of it.
They sent us sensation.
No. They sent me this box. It was a big ass box. And in the box was an autographed picture of Drew Brees. There was a wristband that was for the Saints. And I wore that thing until it fell completely apart. And 2 Saints team shirts like the coaches wore. And it was awesome for them to do that for me.
That is. That's great. That's great. Yeah.
It was something else.
That's great. Yeah, I've met a handful of players in my time, and of course, I've never had an illness or anything like that. I've met them normally in just public appearances. Hey, Darren Sproles will be signing autographs at the Academy on Jefferson Highway here in Metairie. Oh, sure. I go out there and I go meet and greet and sign, get things signed, or I have seen Saints players in restaurants and things like that, and I end up staring, and I don't mean to. Eventually I'll pass by one of them and say, hey, I don't want to. I acknowledge them. I'm like, go Saints, love you guys. Don't want to interrupt your meal, that kind of thing. But I've had players, stop and come over and talk to me, later on and said, hey, I didn't want to bother you or anything like that. It's like, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine, So it's, you forget, some people forget they're humans, and, because you elevate them to such an extent. Drew Brees is one of those guys that he couldn't even do meet and greets anymore. He would just do surprise pop-ins, because if he did a meet and greet, if he was going to be at, let's just say, a Winn-Dixie on the West Bank, there would be 10,000 people at this Winn-Dixie coming to see Drew Brees. You're just not going to, he'd never get out of there. It's like the Beatles showing up. I mean, it won't work. So he just does these pop-in appearances. And I've had people that I know, have been like at a Walk-Ons or Jimmy John's or someplace that Drew Brees owns, and here he comes walking in, with a couple people, but he walks in and he starts telling everybody hi and takes pictures and stuff like that and just leaves. So, people like, and then you'll find out later on social media, people posting pictures. Yeah, Drew Brees is at such and such a place. And that's how people have met Drew Brees, that they'll just run into him in a place that you'd never expect. And I don't think you'll ever have someone with that kind of superstar persona as a player of the Saints. I mean, we're going to have great players. I mean, Ricky Jackson, Willie Roaf, Pat Swilling, Morton Anderson, Archie Manning will show up at functions, and you're going to get a lot of people to see it, but you'll never get the number of people that you will get to see Drew Brees. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. 10,000 people will show up anywhere. Yeah. If Drew Brees is there, you'll have that many people show up because it's Drew Brees, and that's the impact he's had on this team and this city. And I think that's the part that I'm gonna miss the most. The feeling that we're never gonna out of a game, and secondly, that we have a superstar on the team. We don't just have a star. We don't have just a great player. We have a superstar who draws the spotlight to us, and you're just not going to have that again. And for 15 years, he won 13 games his final season. He was injured for 4 of them. But his last play that he did before he took himself out of a game was he did a 2-minute drive to score a touchdown, including bending over to pick up a football off the ground, off of a bad snap, and throw a touchdown pass with 12 broken ribs. I mean, it's just amazing. It's simply amazing.
The thing that stands out the most to me when it comes to Brees is obviously the type of leader of this team that he was. You have these gut-wrenching losses that come along, and it didn't matter if they won by 40 or lost by 40. Drew never refused to go in there and sit down behind that mic and talk to reporters. He always did it.
Yep. Yep.
And he never tried to heap all the praise on himself. He always pointed to his teammates.
And that's probably how I should wrap this up. this discussion, because we could go on for 3 hours talking about Drew. But, the only other quarterback I can think of in franchise history who never got upset with his team or vented about his team in public was Archie Manning. Archie Manning took so much abuse and as a player, but he never demanded to be traded, even though he was on the worst teams imaginable. He knew his coaches were incompetent. He knew the front office was incompetent and never asked to be traded. In fact, was upset and crying when Bum did trade him. The closest he ever got to asking for a trade, well, in 75, the World Football League tried to make him an offer and he wouldn't leave. And in 78, when they named Dick Nolan the head coach, he thought about asking for a trade because he just didn't think he'd fit in with Dick Nolan's philosophy. And thank God he didn't, because that was actually his best years, 78, 79, and unfortunately 1980. Statistically, those were his best 3 years as a player. But, when Drew was on those teams in 2014 and 2015 and 2016, he had already accomplished so many things. He could have easily said, you know what, dude, I'm done. I'm not going to sit here and fight to get 7 wins with the kind of talent you're putting around me right now. And I even said that in 2015. Once they traded Jimmy Graham away, I'm like, they're doing a Jim Everett to him. He's going to be out there with nobody to throw to. Brandon Coleman, he's just got junk receivers. He had one good receiver who was a little guy, Brandon Cooks. 2015, 2016 really didn't have very good receivers until later, but he didn't give up. He does a shootout with the New York Giants and Eli Manning, 7 touchdown passes. That's the franchise record. Breaks Billy Kilmer's record from 1969 against the St. Louis Cardinals. He never once said, yeah, we're not a very good team, or yeah, we've got a lot of problems and I don't expect much. We have to get better players. We're a terrible team. He never said that. Never took that approach. Always took the approach of,
we just got to work harder.
I love these guys. We got to work harder. These guys mean the world to me. We can win. And it was just that he called it annoyingly optimistic, and he wasn't annoying to me. I enjoyed hearing his optimism.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So I promised in the teaser for the show tonight, we'd talk about some of these free agent moves. And yes, Chad, 2 minutes left right before halftime. I love getting the ball in the second half. Score a touchdown in the final 2 minutes of the first half. Score a touchdown again, the first possession in the second half, and it's on. I loved when we were doing that, because I felt like every time we got the ball in the second half, I'm like, in my mind, immediately, the game hadn't even started yet. I'm going, we're going to get 14 points. Last possession of the first half, first possession of the second half. We're going to get 14 points in these clowns. I don't care who it is. So we signed Taysom Hill to an extension full of monopoly money. It's a 4-year, I think, $140 million contract.
Yeah. And
none of it's real money, because all 3 years avoidable. And the reason why they did this, obviously, is they needed to lower his cap figure from 16 million, down to a reasonable amount. But the reason why they do the 4-year deal is so they can take his signing bonus and prorate it over the length of this contract extension. So that's the only number that really matters. Is we gave him a big chunk of cash. He's supposed to make $16 million this year. I think we reduced it to like $4 million or $3 million or something like that. He gets the rest of that in cash. We just prorated over the 4-year deal, and his next 3 years are all voidable. So it's like the contract Tom Brady signed with Tampa, a 4-year deal with 3 years voidable. It's only 1 year deal. He has 1 more year he can play, and if he's going to keep playing, they've got to restructure the deal again. That's all that was. Then yesterday they signed Jameis Winston to a 1 year deal, which is interesting in itself. $12.5 million. It's what it's worth. But his cap figure, his realistic figure, is only $5.5 million. So you've signed 2 quarterbacks under $10 million combined. Jameis can hit these targets, and that money's pushed over to 2022 if he's a starter and accomplishes all these things. So that sets up the first quarterback competition for the starting job since 2001, 20 years ago. It was Jeff Blake versus Aaron Brooks, but Hazel had his thumb on the scale. It was going to be Aaron Brooks all along.
Yeah.
And, prior to that, the last starting quarterback competition between 2 guys who had started was, you have to go back all the way to 1991 when Hebert came back to compete against Steve Walsh. Moore's finger wasn't on the scale nearly as much. Hebert pretty much won that competition out. Some people think it was rigged, but they knew Walsh's limitations, and Hebert didn't have those limitations. So, yeah, you got to go back in time pretty far. The Ditka stuff, we're not even talking about that because that was just a circus. That was a disaster. Let's see. Yeah, Jerry, 2009 Super Bowl is hard to beat. Winston and Waddle. Yeah, I'd like to get Waddle. We'll see how that works out. I really would like to get him. But how do you see this playing out? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that, to delve into it a little further, as we saw today, the Chicago Bears acquired Andy Dalton from Dallas, which there was a little subscript at the bottom of this that said Seattle had decided that they're not ready to part ways with Russell Wilson.
Right.
So that's after that comes to light. You see the Taysom Hill deal. You see the Jameis Winston deal made. I think the reality right now is that it's going to be Winston's job to lose.
You would think that, but I'll be honest with you. I really believe that Sean Payton really favors Taysom Hill, and thank God Anna's not on here because Anna would lose her mind. But I think that that Payton is going to give Taysom Hill every opportunity to lose this quarterback battle. That if all things are even, and I think I might have typed this to you, and I don't remember if I sent this message to you or not. I know I've said it to a couple people. We could very well see. Do you remember Woodstock from the 82 Dolphins? 81, 82 Dolphins, David Woodley and Don Strock.
Yeah.
That combination, we could very well see that where there's a starter, but there's a guy coming in who's going to play a lot.
I fully expect if Winston is the starter that you still see the packages with Taysom.
I think you'll see even more with Taysom. I really do. I think you'll see Taysom come in a lot to do things. And Winston will kind of be on a short hook. In other words, if there are, I don't think he'll have an I've seen enough moment, we're talking about Charles Brown, where Peyton just benched him. Yeah. I don't think you'll have that. But I think there'll be games where, by design, you'll have Oh, look, Anna finally commented. Okay, so Anna is here. Uh, I knew if I called her out, she'd show up. But I think there'll be games that Winston is starting, but you'll see Taysom Hill in a lot of formations, passing and running,
Yeah.
even more than what you had with Drew Brees. And I think that's going to drive a lot of fans crazy. And if he feels that Winston is struggling and he goes to Taysom and Taysom's doing better, he'll go with the quote unquote hot hand and, play him a lot more. I could very well be wrong, but that's just how I see things possibly happening. That's a mess. Because the old saying is if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback.
Yes.
But
ask Tom Landry how that worked.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever get to the Tom Landry point where we're changing quarterbacks on every other play. But I do see Taysom getting, like you saw this last year. If you think about this, there was a time where Drew was out for a lot, and Taysom's running the offense. And then Drew comes back in later. Or it might have been Winston. It might have been the game that Brees was hurt, and Winston was out for a little while. Taysom's running the offense like for a whole drive. I can see things like that happening, and people will get mad and say, "Oh, you're screwing up." They can't get any rhythm. They can't get anything going. But I think if he feels like this is working, he's going to stick with it. So I can see things like that happening. The other things that we saw happen, they traded Malcolm Brown to the Jaguars. I don't know what they get in return. I imagine a day 3 pick.
Yeah.
But they traded Malcolm Brown to the Jaguars, which was a good move, and it got them under the cap. They restructured Teron Armstead, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Michael Thomas's deals. So they've done an incredible job shaving off $100 million that they were over the cap to get at the cap or just below the cap. Plus, they franchised Marcus Williams, and they re-signed J.T. Gray. They brought in a new fullback, somebody from the Carolina Panthers. Who would have thought? And actually this kid looks pretty good. I'm kind of excited about this fullback they got. But we've lost some players along the way. We lost Emmanuel Sanders, who went to Buffalo. We lost Justin Hardy. We lost Trey Hendrickson, who went to the he didn't go to the Jets. He went to the Bengals. He went to the Bengals to go die with Joe Burrow. But we've lost a few players, but we didn't lose our core yet. We still have we still have Marshawn Lattimore. We still have Ryan Ramczyk. You didn't lose your core. The interesting thing that I saw, you talk about Andy Dalton going to the Bears. They said they made a significant offer to the Seattle Seahawks for Russell Wilson, and Seattle said, nah, he's not for sale. They're not trading him, which I found very interesting.
Well, I never, as enticing as it seemed, I never completely bought in for this very reason. I don't want to get all my hopes up and everything and just to be dashed at the finish line.
Well, like I said, I didn't think it was going to happen, but I would have liked for it to happen. I mean,
yeah,
this is the rumor mill right now. Richard Sherman could wind up with the Saints because we have Chris Richard or Richard. It's probably Richard. Only Cajuns call him Richard as a Saints secondary coach. I'm not a gung-ho Richard Sherman guy only because I think it just feels like Champ Bailey all over again.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame player who
at the end of his
career really can't play 16 games as a starter. I really think that they are the kind of guy that they're going to go with a young cornerback and a bargain basement cornerback. I think that's where they're going. I'd like to see him get Asante Samuel Jr. I'd like to see him get, one of the top corners in the draft in the first round to kind of replace Janoris Jenkins, who did sign with somebody. I saw that today too. Jenkins signed with I knew I saw it earlier. Not that one. Not that chat. Justin Hardy signed with the Jets.
Kiss your career goodbye.
Titans signed Janoris Jenkins. Yeah, so I mean, you lost a lot of the guys they let go. I really didn't think we'd be able to get these guys back, but I still would like to get Quan Alexander back. Definitely. I'd like for him to get, the wide receiver free agent market so far. They've talked about this that there's a lot of top talent out there, and there's not much interest in these guys. They're all looking at the draft and saying, I can get a cheaper guy in the draft. Now, the Patriots are spending money like there's no tomorrow, but the rest of them are kind of like, we're not jumping on receivers. We would rather draft a guy than pay a guy a lot of money. So I think we can bargain shop a little bit to replace Sanders.
Well, but Corey Davis went to the Jets.
Yeah.
Why?
Jets had a lot of money and a new coach.
Yeah, but
hey, you never know. They're going to follow the money right now. The only teams that have a lot of money are the sad ass teams that didn't have much money. Didn't have many good players. Yeah, I know a lot of fans want Patrick Peterson. Peterson's he's like Richard Sherman now. He's just a shell of himself. You're really going to have to, I really think the draft is really going to get a guy, and they'll probably pick up a cornerback like a 4 or 5 year guy who's kind of been a starter, but not a big famous guy. I think that's where they'll go. Somebody who might have been a nickelback at one point and might try to promote him to be the outside corner while they groom the young guy to come in and take his place. So, and that also explains probably why they franchised Marcus Williams. What else? I think we've talked about everything. Calvin pushing the Davenport deal, and I hope he does. I really hope he has a breakout season. This will be the year for it to happen.
Yes.
I clicked on already. Golden Tate, Willie Snead, John Brown, Deshaun Jackson, Will Fuller, Sammy Watkins, Adam Humphries, all free agents. Well, they had an interest in Adam Humphries at one point, so that's a name to watch. Willie Snead, I'd like to see him bring him back, but I'm not sure. The rest of them, John Brown's too inconsistent. Will Fuller is interesting. Sammy Watkins would be interesting.
Yes.
But it's how much money these guys gonna want. It really would be. So free agency officially starts tomorrow. All these deals that have been made all season get finalized. It's interesting now. The Bears have gone through everybody. They haven't been able to get anybody. The 49ers are still looking to try and unload or upgrade from Garoppolo. The Patriots re-signed Cam Newton for some unknown reason. And the Panthers are still trying to unload poor Teddy Bridgewater. So it's going to be interesting, this draft. I don't know if they're going to get quarterbacks. I don't know if they're going to have a run on quarterbacks or not. I think they will, based on all these moves. But I'd like to see CJ Mosley too. I don't know. We'll see how this goes off. Mickey Loomis was on the radio yesterday saying that the Saints aren't going to be very active in free agency. The last time he said that on the radio, they signed Jarius Byrd like 2 days later. So we'll see. I mean, that's
not
the
a very
thing.
good precedent.
I know it's not, but that's the thing. Hey guys, last thing I want to show you that I know Sean's got to go make the donuts. This was a Times-Picayune edition yesterday. A whole dedication to Drew Brees. Sports Illustrated has a special commemorative issue coming out next week, all on Drew Brees. I've been getting spam text messages telling me if I want to buy Drew Brees stuff. The Franklin Mint wants to sell some Drew Brees statue now. But the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate is putting out a 160-page book of photographs they've taken over the 15 years of Drew Brees. It's $30. It's a hardbound copy. I'm going to go out and buy that because I'm a nut and I have a whole collection of Saints books I want to keep growing. So yeah. I'm glad you guys have seen this stuff too. I'm getting, I can't tell you how many spam phone calls I'm getting right now for that kind of stuff. That and tell me my Amazon order is delayed. I'm like, what Amazon order? I didn't order shit. Or I came in second place in something, so I get some sort of gift from Amazon. Yeah. Well, I haven't posted any nudes recently, so I shouldn't be in second place on anything. Anyway, gotta throw something like that out right before we get off the air.
And on that note,
I hope so. Either that or Lee Circle, one or the other. Next statue will be Drew Brees in front of the dome. I think they ought to put Drew Brees on top of the pedestal at Lee Circle. I really do. I'd like to see Drew Brees.
Absolutely.
The iconic photo of either him holding the sun or him with the Super Bowl trophy, one or the other. That's how I remember all these things. I've got a dozen books over here. I'm not kidding. I'll have to show pictures one day of all my Saints books I got in football books. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Sean, any last words?
I'm anxious to see what's next. It's going to be a new chapter in the story and the legacy of this team, and I'm anxious to see where we go from here.
I am too. I really am. This is uncharted territory. You got to think about this. Almost an entire generation of Saints fans only know Drew Brees as their quarterback, and this is going to be something that no one's ever seen, and I don't know how this is going to play out. I'm really. This is going to be probably the most interested I'm going to be into a preseason since 2006. We'll see what kind of team this is. I know a lot of people are freaking out because of all the players we lost, but keep in mind we got draft picks this year. We've loaded up. We have, I think, 5 draft picks in the first 107 picks. So that's the last time we had that was 2017. And we could always trade back up, costing picks in the future to trade back up into the first and second round. So, I think that they're going to do a lot of movements this year in the draft, and it's going to be something different. It's going to be a new team. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll keep talking about it all week long, all off season long. But in the meantime, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.